This is the second video in a series where we'll be making a wave defense game, and I'll be taking you through the process step by step. But first, after the last video, people were asked to comment and vote on a poll for what they would like to see next. And so now in this video, we'll be doing what they asked for, and that's game polish. We'll be working on all of those little things that make a game look more professional, or at least as many as we can cover in a short amount of time. The first thing I need to do though is go to the event sheet and organize a little bit, because this is going to get a bit chaotic if we don't organize from the beginning. Always check to make sure things are still working the way they're supposed to. Yep, good. Now we can begin. So the first thing that we're going to do is deal with Z-ordering and the position of the enemies, because we want our enemies to be looking at the position they're going to, rather than just off in the distance. So for Z-ordering, we're going to do something that makes a lot more sense when you see it in action. So we're going to go to the ghost and move its origin point down to the center bottom, right there. This is going to be the point where Z-ordering kicks in and determines whether the ghost will be in front of or behind other objects in the scene. And we'll do the same thing for the player as well. Now, there is an extension for Z-ordering, but I personally don't like it because it means you have to add a behavior to every single enemy or object that needs to be affected. Personally, I just like to put things into a group and use that group for Z-ordering. Okay, so now that we have this, and all of the points have been changed, and everything is in a group, we just need a single action for Z-ordering, where we tell the Z-order of the player and the other objects to be equal to their Y position, which is the Y position of their origin point, which is now at their feet. And that's it. Now when I press preview, and the ghosts start to show in, nope. 1 second. There we go. I had to change the gun Z order to be one above the player so it doesn't go behind them. Alright. Now as the ghosts spawn in, I'll be able to walk up to them and show you the Z ordering happening. And you can already see it with these two ghosts. The one that's lower down is behind the one that's ahead of it. But if I go to this ghost, I'll be nope. 1 second. Okay, if I go to this ghost, I'm behind it now, and now I'm in front of it. Behind, in front. Behind, in front. Behind, in front. And it's going to happen for all the ghosts in the scene to help give the game depth, so things look like they make sense. Alright, now I want to make it so that the ghosts are facing towards the center point, so they're not going backwards. Okay, so I've set it up so that if the enemy is to the right of the center point, it'll flip. And if it's to the left, it won't flip. So that way when they spawn in from the spawning action, it'll check this and then flip them accordingly. And there we go. Now they're all looking at the center point when they spawn in, so they're not going in backwards like they were before. The next thing I would like to do is give them health bars. And there are a lot of ways to do this. Like, you could use the prefab objects that we already have in game, and that's a great option, but I'd probably use that for the player because the player is going to need to adjust for different things and get healed and so on. But just for an enemy health bar, you can just use a sprite object. Actually, it's probably better to use a tiled sprite for this. You gotta put in the size of your object, or the image. And now we'll want to spawn these in over the ghosts whenever we spawn in a ghost. So we'll be creating the health bar when we create a ghost object, and then we'll be using the action to link that health bar to the ghost, which will let us do something later. And because the ghost and the health bar are created at the same time, when we tell it to link, it's going to link two of those objects together because they've already been picked, and it will ignore all of the other ones in scene. So now that it's linked, I can make an event that positions shoot. You know what? This is actually easier with a sprite object because a sprite object you can change the center point. Hold on. When you're doing something like this, don't delete the object first because it will get rid of the events in the event sheet. We just need to change it to the new object and now delete the old one. Okay, there we go. Now, we want to position the object using both the X and Y positions. And we actually want to use a point on the ghost object. So we need to put that point in, call this health bar, and we want that to be above the ghost in the center. That should probably do it. And we want to change the health bar's origin to the center. Depending on the kind of game that you're working on, this may be a thing you need to do all the time, or not at all. So now that we have the point, somebody asked about this in the last video, so I'm going to show you. This is just a regular position action. It's not a position to a point or anything like that. It's just a regular position action in the position section of the actions. And then here, we can press on the expression builder, search point, click on the X position of a point, select the ghost enemy object, select health bar, because that's the point that we just made, and then do the same thing for the Y position. So now we have the X and Y position of that point. So the health bar will be positioned at the X and Y position of that point on the enemy object. But to make sure it picks the right ghost to be above, we need to use the condition take into account linked objects. And there we go. Now let's see if that worked. They should be oh, no. No health bars. No health bars. Let's see what's going wrong. We'll just disable that. Oh. The other ones are being left behind. One enemy has their health bar. Okay. There we go. Okay. So now we have each health bar following each ghost. What I had to do was use the repeat for each instance of enemy, or whatever object you want, event. So this way, for every single ghost on the scene, it's going to take into account if the health bar is linked with the enemy, and then position that health bar on top of that enemy. So before, it was doing it for one enemy, and because it was doing it, and doing it for one enemy, it was content, because it was doing what it was supposed to do. I didn't tell it to do it multiple times, so it did it once, and it was okay. And now we're going to need to delete those health bars, because otherwise they're going to get left behind when the ghost dies. Watch. Now it just floats there. So when the ghost is dead, take into account the link and delete the health bar. And didn't work. There we go. No, that deleted all of them. Hey, there we go. Don't judge me, I've only had 3 coffees. Let me just link that object picking video again up in the top corner. So now, the health bar deletes when the enemy does. Part of the problem was if I put it up here, yeah. So if I put the enemy above the event, then this happens first, and there's no enemy to check for this action. If I put it down here, then the health bar gets deleted first, and then the enemy. Now we're going to do a hit animation, and we're going to start by giving the ghost a knockback animation. We'll call the first one walking, and the next one hurt. There we go. Now, when the enemy gets hit with a bullet, we'll change their animation to hurt. Change it by name. And we'll make an event that checks to see if the enemy's animation is hurt, and if it's finished. And if that's the case, we'll change this animation back to walking. Or floating, I guess, but we're going to make other enemies and it's going to make more sense then. Okay, and the last thing we're going to do is make it so that if the enemy is hurt, they stop walking, which actually means that we need to change the way enemies go towards the center point. So instead of moving them with the permanent force, we're going to change this so that if the enemy's animation is not hurt, we'll use an instant force instead to move the enemy. There we go. Let me just fix the zoom not disabled anymore. And there we go. Oh, whoops. So currently, when you add a new animation to an object, it has those original origin points because it doesn't want to conflict with the existing ones. So we can go to the animations, go to hurt, just use the same points as the animations. Nope, not this one. Hold on. I need to go to walking, flip this switch, turn it on. There we go. And now this one has it. If I'd done it the other way around, it would have applied this image's points to the other one, which this one only had its origin point and center. So that would have been a bad thing. Cool. So now both animations have the same points and can be used as we want them to. Here we go. So shoot it. Hurt. Hurt. Dead. Hurt. Hurt. Okay, so you might have seen there that when I shot a ghost and it was already in hurt animation, it didn't change or react. And so now I've changed it so that when that animation triggers, it's actually going to set the frame to 0, so if it's already in that animation, it's going to restart it. So I said 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. I'll try to show a good example of it happening. There we go. That was about as good as it can get. And I noticed the Z order for the health bars were kind of off, so we need to fix that too. So we'll change the Z order for the health bars to be equal to the enemy's Z order plus 1. Sure. Actually, if we make it even, then it will be like a flat image and that will work out better. Let's see if that worked. No, it didn't work. It doesn't know which one to check. Okay. Now, this isn't a big deal, but for performance I should probably do this. That way we don't have the same event triggering twice, checking every single enemy. So now it's in a single event where we're checking to see if the enemies are linked to the health bar, and then changing the position and changing the Z order. So first, we need to make the health bar represent the actual health of the ghost. So when they get hit, take into account the link. And we don't need the for each for this one because we've already got the ghost picked. And we'll change the width of the sprite object to equal the current health divided by the max health times the original size. And to get that, we can use the expression builder. This is using the health extension, so if you haven't got that extension installed, this won't be there. So the health points of the enemy, that's the current health, divided by the maximum health of the enemy, times the original width, which is 12 pixels. Because if we go back to the object and open it with Piskel, we can see it's 12 pixels wide. So it's the current divided by max times 12. And we'll see how that works. There we go. One shot left. Boom! Gone. So now that the health bar is working, I'm going to adjust the speed and everything of the character. And that's in the top-down behavior, because that's what we're using to move the character. Alright. Next I'll add the collisions for the walls because someone asked for that in the comments. I'm going to add a sprite object for that and just spread it out over the walls. Okay, now I can go to the event sheet and go to the players group, movement, and make it so the player gets separated from the wall. And the player is the first object so that it gets moved and not the wall when separating the two objects. Alright, now when I go in, I cannot walk past the walls. There we go. Now it looks like I can walk up to the wall, but I get stopped down here. I could have gone into the room itself, gone to the collision mask, and added in several different kinds of collision masks for the walls, which I've done before, but honestly, it's a slow way to do it. If you're just using a single room like this or something static, it's just easier to build out a collision mask like this with a separate object. It just means that at the beginning of scene, you need to hide it. And it's gone. But I still can't walk past it. The player just can't see it. And while we're doing collisions, we should probably also do the ghost enemy. So here in the ghost enemy object, we can make a new event and then use the action to separate two objects to make it so that the enemy is separated from the group entities. Yeah, there we go. So you can see they're pushing away from each other. I just noticed actually, hold on. I never changed the collision mask. So if I go to this one, yeah, it's the full size of the image. So I need to go to this one, which is the collision mask that I want shared, and toggle it on. And this will share same collision masks for all animations, which means if I go to this one, it'll be that. So now when I shoot them, it doesn't push them all away. They do stop though, because there's something in front of them trying to stop them from moving. And that way they won't be able to overlap and group up like they did before. And now, up to this point, I've been able to spam the bullet. As fast as I can click, it'll spawn. Well, if we go to the gun and go to the fire bullet behavior, you can see that the cooldown is 0.1 seconds. And we can just change that to 0.5 or something like that. There we go. And because there's a cooldown on there, we can change this to actually be mouse button is pressed instead. So that way we can hold on to the button and it'll fire at that fire rate. You don't want to go too fast with bullets because there's a chance for them to clip through the object before it gets recognized as a collision. But that's pretty good. And now for firing a bullet, let's add a sound effect. We can use the condition has just fired for the gun to play a sound. I don't have one picked yet, so I'm going to go to create one. And I'm just going to pick something randomly until I get something good. So we'll call that gun, save, set a volume, and of course, randomize pitch. Because if you have a sound that plays repeatedly, you need to make sure that it randomizes so it doesn't drive your player nuts. So 0.8 to 1 means it'll be a little bit less or exactly the pitch of what it was before. Alright, now there's a secret weapon for all game devs out there who might want this. Camera shake. And now we can go into the events and add in screen shake when the bullet has been fired. Ooh, that's a bit too intense. So we need to change the settings to make it a little bit less annoying. And we do this by going in and using the action to change certain aspects of the shake. Alright, so now that we've set up the camera settings using the actions at the beginning of scene, we have something that's pretty okay. To cover up those edges, we're going to change the background color. So we'll go to Piskel, use the color picker tool to get the color, and then apply that color to the background. And there we go. Now when the screen shakes, you can't see those edges anymore. Now one more thing that we can add in is some object shake for the gun. And that again is an extension called shake object. Put that on the gun. And then in the event sheet, at the point where the gun is fired, we'll set it so the gun shakes along with the screen to add to the effect. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, now one more thing I'm going to add in is my secret weapon. So I'm going to add in a vignette. Turn the grid back on so it goes in place properly. And to make sure the vignette stays above everything, I'm going to put it on a different layer. Select the vignette, go to properties, and change the layer to vignette. Now I will need to zoom in because otherwise it will do this, because the main game zooms in and the vignette doesn't. And there we go. So now on the edges of the screen the character is a little bit darker, and on the inside it's a little brighter. There are a lot more things that we can cover in regards to game polish, but we can't make the video 10 hours long. So for the next video, comment down below and tell me which one you would like to see. Enemies, power-ups or leveling up, or getting into the menus and settings. Where do you want to see this game go next, and what things do you want to learn? But for now, check out this video.